All right, so just a little bit about me. My name is Joe Levija. I'm a senior MEP technical specialist here with ATG, and today's topic is be more productive with view templates in Revit. So a little bit about me. Been in the industry since 2015. Graduated with an associate's degree in drafting and design technologies. So I have a substantial background in drafting and design. And then working with converting from CAD to Revit and so on and so forth on the design side of the industry in MEP, as well as working on the VDC side of the industry. So you guys will hear a little bit about both of those aspects as we kind of go along. So today, what we're looking at is we're going to talk about view templates in the mechanical, electrical, plumbing productivity pack, or MEP productivity pack, or MEP3, whatever acronym you guys want to use. We're going to review some of the setup and just learn how these templates are used to organize view locations based on project browser. And then we'll also just talk about what's within the actual view templates as well. So I also wanted to kind of dive in as well to what options we have out here, because I'm not going to lie, I'm a huge fan of project setup, huge fan of going through view templates and trying to speed up my process basically as I continue to work. One thing I can tell you that I recognize in the industry is project times tend to not be expanding, they tend to be shrinking, which means we have less time to set up a project, complete it, and get it out the door. So for you guys who are trying to turn and burn projects on a regular basis, view templates can definitely be the way. So something else to kind of go through. Here's our learning objectives for today. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to review view templates per discipline. We're also going to explore the view templates in their categories. Categories meaning floor plans versus ceiling plans versus 3D plans. And even some view templates that some of you guys don't necessarily think about, schedules and so on and so forth. And then we're going to discuss project browser organization with how our view templates are set up here with the MEP3 that we have. Okay, it is time for Revit. All right, so I am in Revit. Okay, so what I've got pulled up here. So I've got Revit 2019. That currently is the latest version of our MEP3 that we have out. It is in 2019. Okay, and just to kind of dive into this a little bit, brief background with view templates for some of you guys who are still newer to view templates. We can access them by going to the View tab here on the ribbon. We have the graphics panel listed out here, and then view templates. And finally, we have manage view templates. So that allows us to get to our view templates. Okay. Once we get into our view templates, just some basic information, just like what we talked about. We've got some discipline filters up here for all our different disciplines. So you can see mechanical, electrical, plumbing, coordination, architecture, structure, so on and so forth. So that gives us some options. But the one we utilize the most is going to be this view type filter. So this one's automatically set to all. You can see we have 3D views, we have ceiling plans, we have elevations, sections, and details. We also have floor schedule or floor structural area plans and then schedules as optional filters. I will tell you guys, and I've done it on my occasion as well, when I'm going to set up a new project or something along those lines, and I blow out some of those view templates that, for instance, maybe like a 3D view template that traditionally will come through on a default startup project out of maybe an out of the box Revit template. The best way to go get that is to either start up another new project with a template, or find a project that has a 3D view, and then just transfer project standards. You can bring some of those across and then blow out the other ones. So gives you some flexibility there. But just want to kind of go through what we have here. All right. And what its importance is. So within how we look at projects, as you can see, we've got different views set up for projects in the MEP3. Okay, and this is going to be our standard starter project out here. But from our view template standpoint, you can see we've got things that start with an E. We have coordination. We're also running into a situation here where we've got F, fire protection. So that's something that we kind of work with as well. There are G, and that's something that may not have been in previous years. I believe 2018 didn't necessarily have a whole series of G view templates, but our latest 2019 version of the MEP3 does. So these are going to be more of the general aspect. For you guys who are in the CAD world, just like that G-ANO world, when you're talking about layers and stuff like that, we kind of have something a little bit similar here in the Revit world for setup. So project setup views and view templates, to me, those are huge, especially if I'm setting something up from scratch and I may not have access to a bunch of extra stuff. I like to use those project setup view templates in every single starter project that I have to set up that's outside of the actual MEPPP starter project. Okay, so next we have down here, we have some of our mechanical view templates listed out here as well. You can see by the M aspect. If we dive a little bit deeper, we have some MEP for some of that 3D coordination option. So those are out here. But then beneath that, we do have the MP. So for some of you guys who are still kind of coming into this a little bit world, we separate the mechanical, so mechanical duct, mechanical equipment aspect with mechanical piping. So that's where the MP comes into play in the acronym here. And then finally, we come down, we got different plumbing options, right? So these are all going to be our view templates. Majority of our view templates are definitely more geared towards the design side of the industry, rather than say the VDC side, the prefab side, or so on and so forth. One thing I can suggest is if you guys do end up purchasing, or if you already have the MEP3 and you have access to all these view templates, these definitely give you a basis as to how we set up our view templates. So definitely reverse engineer them and set up whatever additional view templates you guys may need. I know for myself, I'm always evolving, and the benefit with this package, it gives me that flexibility to keep evolving. So if I've got this type of VDC project, or maybe I got a process piping project coming into play, I can add to this list, right? So just to kind of dive in here, I'm going to go through the categories real quick. So as you can see here, if we filter out to 3D views, you can see we have a series of different 3D view options here. So definitely an overview of the actual view templates or overview of MEP from a general standpoint. So that gives us some of that flexibility there. And as you can see within the view template, we have some additional parameters built in here, and that's specifically for organizational use. Okay. Outside of that, we come down to the M category here, and the M category is for duct, and that's to do a duct riser. So as you guys may be aware, when you're doing duct risers, this is awesome for multiple purposes. So when we kind of dive in here a little bit, you can see within the duct riser, I don't have any of my actual Revit links listed. Okay, and what I transition this one for is, if depending on the project type I'm doing. So I still work on project work on a fairly regular basis, whether it's design side of the industry, or as of late, whether it's the VDC side of the industry. So that coordination, clash detection, construction area, putting shop drawings together, so on and so forth, exporting out to Navis. So with this M riser duct, what this gives us the flexibility to do is I can duplicate this and I can actually make this one of my Navisworks view templates. So I like to have a series of separate views dedicated towards Navis as well. So I'll go through, I'll duplicate this out and gives me that extra flexibility. I'll do this as a riser duct overall. And then I'll also separate out my separate categories as well, because I like to do my own internal clash detection also, especially at the beginning stages of a project when maybe we're still estimating the project, or maybe we're trying to just kind of see what quality the design model has come to us in. So that way we can start heading off issues if we have to put out an RFI, if we have to do some more design or even more modeling to kind of catch up. So gives us some flexibility there. As I go down a little bit further, you can see here I've got some of my MEP drawings. This is for the energy model, selection box option. So some of these are actually already set up for you in the starter project. And then as we come down a little bit further, we have our MP, which is mechanical piping. And those mechanical piping 3D options out here give you some of the riser options. So if you can see here, as I kind of dive through, take a look at the detail level. So you can see in the detail level here, everything's listed as fine. For my guys who do single line instead of double line, swap it from fine to medium, and you'll be fine. You're going to produce something a little closer to what you guys are used to producing in the CAD world when it comes to a riser diagram, as opposed to in the Revit world, where some people are looking for more of an isometric view or something along those lines. So I'll give you some of that flexibility there. Outside of that, we do have our plumbing, same aspect. Plumbing piping, you got domestic, storm, and waste vent. So, and if you by chance have additional options out there, you can definitely set those up. As you can see in here as well, when we go to Revit links, same thing. There's an architectural placeholder that's listed on here that quickly can be turned off pretty quick when you start diving into this. But I utilize these views as well, these view templates in all my VDC projects, and I just duplicate and add to it basically. So one thing about view templates that some of you guys may be curious on, how do you transfer view templates from one project to the next? Quick tidbit to that, Manage tab. Transfer project standards under the settings panel. And then as we check none, come down here, and we've got our view templates floating down in here. That's view reference type. Hang on one second here. I'll look for my view templates that I have hidden out here. That one does not have any view templates. That one does not have any view templates as well. Nor, I'm guessing, does this one. But view templates will be right in this designated area right here. You can literally click V and it'll bring you down to that area. You can check that box, hit OK, transfer them across, and then you've got your view templates. Just a quick tidbit to that though, make sure you hit the F button and find yourself over in the filters world. You'll have your filters out here as well. Okay, so quick and easy transferring things across from one project to the next. And that's something that helps speed up that time, especially that setup time. If you pair that with some additional options out there, like the BIM project suite, where you got your view creator, with those view templates, your levels, and whatever your construction type, whether it's new construction or existing, so whatever phase there, you can essentially have new views created on top of an existing existing design model for VDC coordination. So just to kind of dive in here as well, we do have, from an electrical standpoint and ceiling plans, we've got some of our standard ceiling stuff. So that tends to gear itself towards lighting and system systems as well. So fire alarm, and so on and so forth. There's also mechanical ceiling coordination out here. So, and as you can see, ceiling coordination versus plan versus working. So we separate our plans. So you know, from a standard project standpoint, we're going to have working docs, we're going to have coordination, and then we're going to have CD docs. So those different view types that we create, we've got a separate view template to cover all that. Okay. Most of those tend to have a detail level of fine. And then when you start diving into this and you start seeing how everything's kind of set up here, we can see we've got the view classification information out here. And this is what is driven to organize our information within our project browser. So, and I'll show you that here in a moment. So, but we have flexibility here, and I utilize this as well in both my design side of the industry as well as my VDC side, especially doing shop drawings. It's fairly quick to set this up, fairly quick to move stuff across, everything along those lines. Make sure as well, on top of that, project browser goes a long way. So if you're working with these view templates, you'll definitely want to have the filters and have the project browser whenever you're working with them. We also have out here, we have a couple different options when it comes to elevations. So it's no coincidence. The first thing you see is the E1 line section. Okay. Within the MEPP3 for mechanical, for electrical, we have a one-line series of views that we can create. And we have a designated view template to assist with that. So I believe we have another webinar that has some of this information. It should be on YouTube at this point. So if you have any questions, definitely throw down some information, and we'll get in touch. But this is an alternative out there as well when it comes to view templates. So our next series of information out here, we have sections. So obviously section plans, so stuff that's going to go on a set of sheets. Section working, stuff that's going to go in that working pile. And my suggestion, anything working, please name it. We talk about section management whenever I'm doing training. And that's just because I've been on projects where we got like 300 sections that have been pulled. None of them have names, and we don't know what's going on a sheet, what's not. So I suggest definitely utilizing that section working for any of those sections you're pulling, just to do some working modeling aspects there. And that's for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. That's how I look at that. The general project setup section, this one is actually what we see in the initial project setup that is in the actual user manual. So this is going to be that standard view template that they utilize in order to set this project up in a quicker way than traditionally what we're used to with out of the box Revit. So, and you can see there's a whole series of additional sections out here. So there's one dedicated to the thermal zone. So that's got some different settings and everything like that, so on and so forth. Then we get into floor plans. You can see there's a whole variety of floor plan section or view templates that are out here. And the idea of the view templates in the floor plan that we have out here, we have stuff for electrical. So we have demo covered. We have site information covered. So site is becoming a little more of a thing on the design side, and to be honest, on the contracting side or design build side, it's getting larger by the day as well, especially with site coordination, doing all that underground and everything like that. These help out tremendously when we're working in that realm. So there's also existing you may not need demo, you may not always need existing, but you have it there, it's set up, it's ready to go. There's no adjusting on the fly. You're all set. And this, keep in mind, everything you're seeing here, this is all in our starter project. So with this being in our starter project, this is less stuff that you have to worry about, creating, adding, moving, so on and so forth. If you don't need it, you know the deal. When you set your starter project up, you do a save as, and then after you do your save as, resync, get yourself set up. At that point, you can kick out whatever you don't need. So, but on top of that, so we got lighting, we got power, we got systems. So you can see there's a series of different options out here when it comes to lighting, power, and systems. It's not just a standard lighting set of plans that go on a construction dock, working, that we work out of, and coordination that we may just coordinate out of. There's actually additional options out here. So we got call out and analysis because we've taken into the idea into analysis. All right, so I do have a question out here. Is this going to cover how to set up view templates from scratch? I will show you a little bit of what goes into these view templates, but if you want to definitely go into view templates from scratch, that would be something that takes a little bit longer than the presentation here, so we can go through that offline if you'd like. So I'll have our information at the end, and feel free to message me. We'll do that. You're welcome. So outside of this, when we get into power, now we see with power, we got power and systems. That's important because a lot of us do a lot of power and systems combined per se. So gives you a little bit of flexibility there. I know a lot of my systems guys, because I started out in systems, we mix some of that stuff up, so that gives us a little bit of extra ability. And we don't necessarily have to, again, create something else on the fly. So as we scroll down a little bit further, we've got some of our mechanical. So mechanical, same aspect. Mechanical piping, fairly similar aspect. And plumbing, same aspect here. These are all floor plan view templates. And even one of those significantly special ones is the plumbing underground down here. Benefit with the plumbing underground that we have here, come to view range, you can see that the view range has already been somewhat adjusted for you. Okay, and this can be tricky, especially depending on the levels and everything like that we're looking at within a building. Adjusting view range is still something that a lot of the industry is still working to overcome. As we look at this is still a 2D representation. So hopefully in the future, it will not be as challenging for some of us, especially us newer guys that start up in the industry and training some of the newer folks coming in. But definitely having that view range kind of adjusted for you, you get a little more flexibility in that realm to focus on some of the more important things like getting the modeling and stuff like that. So I've had guys literally sit on view range for an hour and a half trying to adjust it. So kind of a heads up there. We've also got roof deck penetration. So we don't necessarily, as you look here, you can see the HVAC, you see the duct, you see the piping, you see the plumbing, you see the penetrations and stuff. When we put together all of the view templates here, we tried to think a little further into the project. So say a project life cycle, and that's how we came up with what we came up with in this realm. Okay. As we go down just a hair further, we have schedules. So this is something that outside of this pack, I don't see much of when it comes to view templates. And that's making sure we have view templates set up for schedules. Now, it's very limited compared to what we may have for a floor plan or ceiling plan or so on and so forth. However, what we have here is when we go into the appearance, this is where we can set that standard appearance. So as you guys may know, schedules in the MEPPP are set up in such a way to where we've got schedules to help with our design, right? And stuff that we may look at, we may key new information in on some of our inputs, so on and so forth. But then we also have schedules that are going to go on a sheet and get plotted and sent out for CDs, permit sets, so on and so forth. So we want to make sure whatever we're sending out the door, it's consistent. So with having that actual view template applied here, we can now adjust our appearances to make sure it looks a little more like what we're looking for. And then for you guys who are in the process of developing your Revit to kind of resemble what you did for the CAD world, you can see with the view template here that you can adjust and play with this and kind of work your presentation to what you may be accustomed to from the CAD world. So there are some subtle differences, but it gives you some of that flexibility there. So outside of that, you can add phase filters, and then you can see some of the design options and stuff out here as well. So we've got this for electrical, mechanical, and plumbing also. And that kind of gives us some of the baseline of what we're looking at here. So back to, I'm just going to go to a floor plan view template here. And I'm going to dive into one of our HVAC plans, right? So within one of our HVAC plan view templates here, first thing to kind of explain out is we know we got parameters, we got values, and then we got include. So you can see within the include world, notably scaling is unchecked. So that means we're going to address that at the view level and not in the view template level, right? Once we dive down a little bit deeper, we can see our detail level. We tend to utilize that medium functionality out here. And then the moment we step outside of that, we're going to get into our model categories. So it does say VG override model. Whenever you hear that information in the industry, specifically myself, I'm going to tell you if something's wrong, check your model categories, check your annotate categories, so on and so forth. And that will kind of help get you guided a little bit. But what makes these view templates in the starter project for the MEP3 so valuable is, as we go through here, you can see we have those specific items turned on and those ones that we don't need turned off. Okay. So as I scroll down, you can see I got duct on, I've got my air terminals on, generic models, which by the way, clearances. So if you're somebody who needs clearances, as of 19.0, clearances are under generic models. This is where you can turn that on or off. In the future, there is some talk of transitioning that into its actual category of equipment. So mechanical under mechanical equipment, electrical under electrical equipment, so on and so forth, and plumbing fixtures. But as of right now, this is on for a reason. As we dive further down here, you can see we've got something set up here to where we've got some lighting fixtures. However, we've got a different line type set. All right. We've got a transparency set, and we've got those listed as halftone. All right. So this is already kind of preset out here, so that way it doesn't plot as well. And then as we dive down a little bit further, you can see what's on and what's off. So this helps us kind of guide that start of the actual view template setup here. So this shows us what's out here. Naturally, we didn't turn anything structure on or off or anything like that. And for some of you guys who are still learning some of that, the reason we don't necessarily adjust structure and may not necessarily adjust everything else like shaft openings and so on and so forth, specifically because what we're focused on in the standard model categories right here in our view template or in our visual graphics that would be in our properties palette is going to be dedicated more towards what's actually in our model. So if we're linking in a model, say from the architect or from our structural team, we can then go through Revit links in order to come in and adjust our model categories. So, and that's where, kind of like in the CAD world, when you're working with XREFs and you're linking in an architectural background and so on and so forth, with an XREF, you have a different set of layers in a different location that you go through to turn layers on and off. Revit follows that similar pattern, except they hide their stuff in Revit links, if it's a Revit link, or in the imported world for CAD links. Otherwise, that's kind of where majority of this kind of comes into play, right? So that's why we see structure sitting out here and that's because in this model, specifically the MEP model, we're not expecting to have structure in the MEP model. So my suggestion is when you're working with models, even from a VDC standpoint or a design standpoint, MEP tends to have either its own model, one single model, for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. Otherwise, they break those out to mechanical has its own model, electrical has its own model, and plumbing has its own model. And the way that kind of gets looked at is specifically when you're looking at the size of a building or size of a project, and you start venturing closer to that mark where you know your PC is going to struggle a little bit. For me, working with a BIM box, anything over a gig, I try to separate my models out. Okay. VDC, guys, you know, mechanical has their own, plumbing has their own, electrical has their own regardless, and we're linking all kinds of random stuff in there. So it's kind of how that whole process there works. So in the design industry, architect tends to have its own model, structure tends to have its own model. If there's an interior model, we've got an interior model. And then mechanical, electrical, and plumbing either have a combined model or separate models. So it's kind of the option of how this is set up here. And that's how we're seeing that in our view templates. As we go through our annotation categories, there may be one or two items that are turned on or off, like for instance, scope boxes in our HVAC plan. Obviously, we don't want to see the scope box outline sitting on our floor plans. So that gets turned off here. So that's kind of how we go through this process here. Analytical, if you guys have an analytical setup, this will have some different visibility adjustments. Okay. When we get into the import world, this is going to be for your CAD imports and such. So this is where, and you can see I've got this little plus sign here extended. If you've got say a CAD background linked in and you're working off a CAD background and a series of reference planes in order to work out a Revit, which definitely understand, I do it quite a bit myself. This is where you can turn on and off layers from that exact CAD reference. So it gives you that flexibility there. Now, the next category here we have is filters. And filters, the idea behind these filters, these filters, as opposed to work sets and as opposed to just working with model categories, these filters are what drives the visibility in the MEP3. Okay. And as we go into edit new, you can see all the different filters that drive all of our view templates. I mean, there are a ton of filters. And the reason we're able to have these filters built out here and driving our views as much as they are is because we've spent the time to go in there and make sure that the little things like our piping systems, our duct systems, all that classification information, all that's filled out, all that's already set up for you. So you don't have to necessarily set that up and then try to make a filter off of that. All this information is set up in here. And then that gives us the ability now to dive deeper into filters and have more of that flexibility there. So that's why you can see equipment, not air, not hydronic, so on and so forth, versus air system classification and so on and so forth. And then we've got stuff including work sets already set up for filters. We got stuff from system class and everything like that to outside of duct system, outside of sections. So traditionally, what I was used to seeing is we're going to focus on the systems for our filters, and that's going to be about the extent of what we see. And we're going to drive some of that with work sets. Well, the MEPP3 allows us to drive systems with multiple filters in place of work sets, giving us a little bit more flexibility and a little more in-depth view options here as well. Benefit, they're already set up. And then on top of that, if I cancel, you can see here that I've already got my filters included in my actual view templates. Okay. And that's big because that's something less that you don't have to do. One, setting up a filter, and two, adding the whole series of filters and visibly showing that. I mean, that's time. That's simply what it is. What's the cost for your value on time? So that's how this whole process kind of comes into play, and that's how we set up our view templates. All right. When we start looking at our work sets, you can see we have a series of work sets in the starter project here, and these series of work sets, all of them are on, right? And that's specifically because we have those filters in play, and everything is built up in a way to allow us to have that functionality. Okay. Finally, we get into this last point here. This is going to be our Revit links, right? So first thing right off the top, when we look at our Revit links, and this is something that we definitely I like, but definitely suggest whenever you're working with this to kind of follow this aspect. You can see I have what's known as an architectural placeholder, an E through M electrical mechanical placeholder, structural placeholder. These are simply models that were created that are just barely really out here, and I think they've got, I mean, they've got like no space used, no meg or anything, and they might just have a couple indications to indicate that they're an architectural placeholder, such as a structural placeholder, with basically wall saying structure versus architecture. But the idea behind that is now we've got these placeholders linked into our actual model here, into our starter project, right? And on top of that, we've got our display settings set up here, and you see they all say custom. Well, now when we go into this, these are already pre-set up for us. So instead of your standard procedure of, all right, let's go in, let's link the architect model in our project setup. Let's link the structure model in our project setup. Let's now copy monitor the levels. Let's copy monitor grids. Let's create our views. Being the standard, now what we're looking at is we're looking at a different approach. We've got our architectural placeholder. We've got our custom display settings already out here. So we know what we want to see, what we don't want to see in our architectural model, right? And it's already set up like that out here. So what we do is instead of linking in the architect model, instead of linking in the structural model, we actually go right in and we we literally reload from. So I'll show you that option here. When we come right into our managed links, reload from, and then we navigate to where our architect model is at. So, I mean, if we're going into, say, a project file, for instance, our underscore linked Revit, we're just going to specifically reload from that location, and then that's going to load our model in here, and that's going to hold all of those settings. All right, and that's a huge time-consuming option out here. So. All right, so this is some of the input that I have here on some of the view templates. Also, just want to make sure I go through just an extra couple pieces of information here. As we were diving into this a little bit, I do want to stress to you guys, we have certain aspects out here. So we got these keywords under HVAC. We've also got view classification. All right. Reason that's important is because once we get out of these options here, so discipline and sub-discipline and stuff like that, which traditionally what is set up in the standard out of the box version, we get into browser organization. All right. And you can see we have different browser organizational setup here. So views, sheets, and schedules. So, but for views, for instance, and this is why view templates are important as well. We want to make sure when we start stacking up a project here, we can find whatever view we may pull. Within this aspect here of view classification, when I go into grouping and sorting, now you can see this is how we actually sort our views in our project browser. So by having that view classification, then our family, and then our sub-discipline that allows us to organize all of our view locations within our view template. So the moment we apply that view template, which is basically the snap of a finger, at that point, what we're able to do is we're able to have that specific view show up accurately the way we have the template set up, rather than having to go in and adjust and so on and so forth. So those are some of those options that we have out here. And that's how we managed to put this pack together and really give you guys that flexibility, as well as, I mean, including us as well, because we still do project work, gives us that flexibility to hit the ground running rather than spend a whole ton of time putting together a project, going through the whole project setup and spending those day, 2 days, 3 days, depending on the size of your project and the amount of work that needs to be done. So I've got a question out here, and the question that I have, are there instances when the user has to make sure to set up their modeled elements with correct properties for the filters to work properly? That is a very good question. That is, yeah, something that the user will want to make sure that their model elements are correctly set up. And that could be things from simple browser organization, or actually just kind of like the simple aspect of what category that you have out there. So for instance, if you're bringing in a bunch of Revit elements or something like that, some different families, and those families may be set up as generic model, you want to make sure that's accurate. And those may be mechanical equipment or so on and so forth. That means something. But then also when it comes to properties and everything like that for filters, you'll also want to make sure if you're setting up a project from scratch, you're going to want to make sure you've got those different duct and piping set of systems out here that are accurate, and that everything within that actual filter kind of follows that. So if we're looking at system here, so we've got that system abbreviation. We have to make sure we have within our systems and I had this question recently, we got to make sure within our piping systems and our duct systems, we have system abbreviation filled out. Otherwise, it's not going to properly work, right? So in the same aspect, we have to have those exact work sets out here that come with the pack. Um, if we're looking at a fixture, we have to make sure we've got the type name has to equal out domestic cold versus domestic filtered cold, so on and so forth. So to be, yeah, that is how we kind of look at that. Also, I do want to thank everybody for attending today. Um, Definitely, if you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with us. My contact information is out here. Please see us on LinkedIn. Definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel, and then feel free to get in touch with your local sales representative, and they can get you guys in touch. We can do a demo. We've got all kinds of cool options out here. I definitely like to thank everybody for taking time out of their day, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the near future.